Welcome back to the Revival Lounge. Of course, you've got myself, the mad scientist from Collectibles, Josh, and with me today, of course, is the man, the wizard, the wonderful legend himself, Sam from Funky Tiger Cards.
How's it going, everybody? All right?
Today, we are talking strictly about dents. It's something we get asked a lot on recently, how to tackle them, what you're doing, and it's hard to give a regular answer because every card or everything I've been posed a question with is different. So we thought we'd put out something like an understanding style of thing when tackling dents and dealing with different dents. The first thing you sort of got to look for is obviously what card you're doing it on. Every card stock from vintage to modern era is different. Where it's made will make it different. So for instance, sort of modern Japanese cards are different to vintage non-hollow cards. Like every card stock will be different. So you've got to understand what card stock you're dealing with. The second thing to know is what the dent actually is, how shallow it is, how wide it is, how long it is. All of these will make dealing with that dent different. So firstly, we'll talk about the cardstock side of things. And I know Sam has been dealing with these many, many times. So he's probably an absolute expert on individual cardstocks and card compositions.
No, I appreciate it, Josh. Thanks. So the way I like to consider card treatment, and there's all sorts of different peculiarities with different cards, but if you keep it really, really simple, you've got, everyone talks about like the black core in Pokemon cards, like the black layer, right? So if you think about this piece of foam as the middle layer of a card, you've then got the paper backing, and I appreciate they vary from like vintage to Japanese to modern, but primarily you have a paper back on that card.
Yeah.
And then, especially on the vintage, you'd have almost like another paper bit on the front. All the shinings, you'd have the same sort of thing. But predominantly, especially on the modern cards, so like, I know you picked up a great example, but if you look at like this Superior rather, that has like a plasticky layer on the top. So if you consider like this semi-rigid as that is your card layer. So if you think about damage to a card, what I try and think about is the damage to just one of these layers. If you've got damage to the black core, like if a crease goes to that black core, you're probably always going to have that. That damage through. But some of the dents you'd have to treat by going through all three layers to try and pop it out the other side.
Yes, of course. This is why we talk about the depth of a dent and judging on it, how deep has that dent gone? Because sometimes it can be in one side and you'll even notice protrude out the other side, the entry and the exit wound. Other times it won't. It will just slightly go in and you'll notice it. And I imagine if it has just gone through that back paper layer and you just see it very slightly, that will come out easily.
Yeah, 100%. And what I'd probably say is just consider, like you say, where the damage is, but also the treatment plan for it. If the damage is a dent to this like plastically hollow layer, you're probably going to end up with some form of scar. It's very difficult to get that back to how it was. If you think about that analogy that I said before about like a plastic spoon, if you bend it over and over and over again, you'll end up, it'll sort of go like white and almost like translucent, and you'll never get rid of that. So
it distorts the polymer. It makes the polymer like it completely, the composition of it. And it's not like memory foam or a memory polymer that will remember where it used to go, even if you heat it up kind of thing. Yeah. The best you can do is guide it back as much as possible. But you have to be realistic about these things. Will it go back to how it was, or just enough that it is less noticeable? Yeah, exactly. More presentable.
And then on the flip side of that is if you've got damage just to the back of a card, that's perfect. That's localized to one area. You don't then need to go and sodden the whole card. You can treat it in that one area, and then that one area, you don't need to then go poking all the way through to try and restore dents. You can let the card rest back up because its card, it will naturally want to relax when it's
to come back. Yeah, exactly. So when it absorbs moisture, that it's made of cellulose. Obviously, we talked about this before. It's hygroscopic. It will absorb that moisture and swell up. Exactly. Like it's what it does. And then when you're evaporating it, it brings it back down again to a natural factory style of look. Someone actually sent me a picture recently, and they had a tiny little, it's like a fold almost, but it looked like a dent at the very edge. Would you say that a dent that's closer to the edge is harder to treat than one that's more central? And this was on the front of a card as well. It was a modern era Mew EX.
Okay, so dents to the front. So if we start just coming back a little bit, if you're treating a dent to the front of a card, you very rarely want to work the front of a card, especially if it's like plastic. To get the best results for doing that, you need to do your 2 sprays, do whatever time you find appropriate. And I want to come back onto this in a bit, but
Yeah.
when we talk about like working the card through, if you've got a dent, so if you say like to this superior as well, what you want to be doing is after you've appropriately soaked the card, is work it into a pad. So put your plate underneath, and then you put the card on top, and then you flip it the other way around, align to where the damage on that pin dot is, or that scratch, that dent is, and then massage the back of the card. So you're, rather than pushing down onto that plastic, you're actually doing it from the reverse in that area and massaging it
and
back
trying
out.
to push it through. I was about to do that as a little symbol, maybe not best. But yeah, my advice to him was it's a risky one because you're going to have to work from the back of the card to try and push it through. However, it being so close to the edge that if you are pushing the back of the card, the seam of the edge of the card may split, kind of thing. As if,
yeah, you can have that.
I mean, it's not, if you're careful enough, you won't. I said to him, like, it's just a very risky procedure kind of thing. You'd be able to do it, but it is. So I'd find that you've got to take everything into consideration when working a card on how to do it. Especially if you're working from the back of a card, you will inevitably probably cause more damage, but is that going to be fixable damage, or because sometimes you've got to do a bit more to make it look better in the long run kind of thing.
Yeah. I was just going to say, a lot of the time when you're trying to fix cards, you do have to do more damage to it. Another option you do have for if the working from the back of the card doesn't work, you can do a little method like cross hatching. So if you use that same bit of paper, and say, for example, this yellow, like I'm left-handed here, this is the wrong side, right? That's your dent, okay?
Yes.
If you then go across with one of your tools, right? So it's a really large example is this Cricut tool, but you'd use the bottom of this and sort of go across, but effectively you go across it like that, then you work back across like that, and then you come almost like down it a little bit. But the idea is you do little tiny strokes. That's quite good for working like sides of the card or near to the sides of the card. Because what you're doing then is you're turning that line into a wider, shallower dent. It's a little bit trickier when you've got those plastic top cards, because you can end up, if you're too rough with it, you can end up scarring the card. But that's just another way.
This is why, like, I want to stress to people as well, when you are doing like the crosshatch method, or what I found is, the roller thing that I showed on last, that's a good way for showing it. But it's very easy to want to put pressure on it to try and do it quicker, but don't do it. Like, don't put pressure on it. Slowly move those fibers. Slowly do it. If you do it in one big push, they'll just go dented in, and then they'll be forever like that. 100%. You want to slowly cross hatch it to slowly build out that wider, because this relaxes the fibers. You don't want to compress them. You're not compressing them, because then that makes them even harder to pop back out. But if you slowly 100%. Guide them down, then it sort of like spreads them out a bit, and then the fibers next to those fibers will also move, so that when you do apply moisture, it will all simply come back together. It's quite beautiful, really. Everything in this it takes time, it takes patience. Don't be heavy-handed and just roll with it. But inevitably, to tackle with dents, the premise of it is you are shallowing out that dent to make it less of a sharp, rigid dent, so that it can do its thing and come back to normal. So obviously, best case scenario of a dent would be backside of a card, a wider dent, so you've got like quite a big of a crater path, and it hasn't gone through the 3 layers. How would you treat that?
So I'd always start by doing, if it was a modern card, do 2 sprays on each pad. If it was a more vintage card, I'd probably do 1 on each pad. Leave it in for 6 hours. And then after that, get out, do a bit of tool work. So what I wanted to cover and had a few questions about is the time. So a lot of people, go to work, come back, they do, left it in like 12, 14 hours, got it out, massaged the card. I'm like, okay, you probably left it a bit long. So one of the things that we've been playing around with the card mist was to promote better evaporation, quicker working times, to be better than any other card mist out there, rather than just distilled water, which will allow you time to just sit and leave it. After it becomes a point in time where the card mist will have naturally started to evaporate from the card whilst it's in the clamps for the first time. So if you're trying to think about a card being workable, there's a point where it starts to become less workable from that first spray. Yeah. So what I'd always advise people is set a timer, try it after 4 to 6 hours, and just see how it feels. You'll know how it feels in your hand. It'll probably feel cold. You'll be able to, a natural Pokemon card will have some form of, like, you'll hear it wiggle. You'll feel it resist. But when it's like hydrated, you'll feel it's like a lot more like pliable. You'll just, when you start doing it, you'll know what I mean. And it's you just need to try it and work out, okay, I've probably left this one a bit long. I won't work it now. I've left it a bit long. Reclamp it up, get it dry, and then start again, but leave it less time.
Yeah. Timings is very important in this as well. Like with both incorporating the moisture into the card and the evaporation time. Like I have people saying, oh, there's still some curvature in my card and I've left it for 12 hours. You may need to leave it longer. There's still moisture in that card. Like but you've got to go with it. Like that 4 to 6 hours mark and on the introduction of moisture is perfect, because that makes a card very workable. And if you do leave it longer than that, especially 8 to 12 hours, like that's a long time. Chances are it would have either evaporated or is less workable. Like you want the card to be in that crucial state of workability, and that's 100%. Why on our guide we do say between 4 and 6 hours. That's when you can begin working the card. Any longer than that, it still may be workable, but that 4 to 6 hours is that sweet spot.
And that's because the card mist is so good. That's like
it's a exactly
plus. You know, it's already started to evaporate. The card is becoming more set. So yeah, just try it.
Exactly. So then, so you've introduced the moisture, you've taken it out, it's now workable. How are you working that shallow, just on the back card dent?
So say, for example, we've got a dent. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's put I think this is
this is where you pull out a Gold Star Charizard and ram it with a pen to
so say, for
show
example,
a good example.
We've got a dent there, right? Now, that's almost like a scratch as well. But because this card is paper backed, right, the first thing you want to do is like, right, does the damage go through to the other side? Yes, it does, because I've absolutely smashed it, right? So that's fine, right?
Perfect example,
right? So in this case, when we talk about that analogy before of having the 3 layers, I know I've got damage to the front, middle, and back of that card, that sandwich. So I'm going to have to do stuff on both sides. So once it's pliable, and I've soaked the card appropriately, what I would do is I would get my acrylic plate and put the foam pad on top, and then I'm not going to smash more of the dent from the front because it's already dipped, right? So I'm just leave that alone. Flip it over to the other side, and then what I would do is get like a penny sleeve you could get a piece of parchment, but penny sleeve you can see through it, right? Or something similar.
Just any form of sort of protective layer kind of thing.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of options you can do, right? So I've got this, which is an overgrown example of the tools that we have in the kits, the bracket tools. And literally all you can be just doing is massaging over that area. And, you're talking gentle. I'm not pushing down, just a bit of gentle work to like get the card moving in that sort of area.
So this is what I was saying, like it is so tempting that you just want to try put as much force in as possible to try and push it out. That's not what you want to do, because that dent's still protruding underneath. You want to massage it, gently allow those fibres to all work in unison to come together to do their thing.
And what I've always found as well is when you've got cards that need to suck back up, this is what easier from the back, and that's just something that I found. I've also got some clay tools, which are like metal balls.
Yes,
they're sometimes good for like working bits out, but this is just it's a bigger version of what's in the revival kits with the makeup tools. But effectively, you're just working over that area into the pad, and all you're just trying to do is massage that really protruding bit, and you should be able to see now already that it's not as aggressive. You can still feel it a little bit. I mean, the card's crisp, right? It's a really crisp card.
Exactly.
And what you'll notice is you'll probably still have a bit of a dent on the front, and if it was a card like the Superior one, I wouldn't really want to be doing any faffing around with the front. I'd want to just get it through, work the dent through from this side, and then
get the back back to as much as possible kind of thing. So you'd say, start with the easier side first.
Yeah.
As opposed to, So get that back looking all right.
Yeah. Ideally, no one is really going to be working on bulk. Ideally, people...
of course.
Primarily, people are going to be working on cards that are hollow-fronted, or they've got some form of thicker card on the front. So, it's going to be important to them. They're not going to be working on bulk, right? So predominantly, the way I think of it is you don't really want to be touching this side too much. All the work you can probably do from the back, apart from when you get to the end. So say, for example, you've had that dent, so let's just replicate it on this one. So you've got a dent there.
That poor EX card.
Oh, it's fine. So you've got...
Sacrifices have been made.
All for science, mate. All for science.
Yeah.
So you've got that little dent there, you can see, but that's protruding out on the front. When you've massaged it back on the back a little bit, you then do effectively the same on the front. So that would then level the card out. but you'd
Yes.
probably want to do that straight onto the acrylic plate. I don't have my acrylic
I was
plate.
going to say we do it. So yeah, from the back, if you're working on the back side with the plastics, it is
Yeah.
more use a surface that has give to it, so you can push it because effectively it's just working with the card as well. And
Yeah.
when you push in on it, it's also allowing some leeway.
Yeah.
However, when you flip it over, because you want it as flat as possible on the front, use a plastic surface.
Exactly. So that if you think that's your 3 layers again, and you've got your dent that you're trying to work through, that pad, like you say, that's going to give a bit of give. Whereas if it's like on that hard acrylic, it's not going to give anywhere. That's where you're doing that last bit of like I'm just massaging it flat a little bit, or you want to like roll it flat, or whatever you're doing to just try and get the card to how it wants to look, and then you clamp it up. The next point around clamping for dents, best way of doing it is to let it rest within the pads. So I've got a couple of examples here. So this card in here has got a dent in it. Worked it last night. I've left it clamped up in the pads, fresh pads. But if you've got one set of pads, just flip them over. So you've got the drier side, and then that's fair face down, so the back is pointing up, and that'll just stay like that. And then if you're flattening a card, I do it without the pads, but within parchment paper. Again, back up, and then that's how it dries. So depending on what you're trying to treat, you set it to dry differently as well.
So once you've worked the card, put it on dents, put it in between pads, and then clamp it up that way. Yeah. And what's the reasoning for that? Is that just because it allows it to, if it needs to fluff up or anything like that, it allows it to do that rather than, because I find if you are clamping with plate, obviously you're technically stretching the entire card by having pressure on it on all sides kind of thing, whereas that gives it a bit of sponginess, so it has leeway to do bits.
Yeah. So if you've got a card, you've sort of massaged it and it's sort of well hydrated, if you look at it under a form of light, it'll almost look a bit like wavy. Yeah. Whereas if you had like the dent, you want to try to say get it to its or shallower, but it'll look really I don't know how to focus, but it will look quite wavy on the actual card.
Okay.
So what you want to try and do then is put it in the pads, and the pads will allow it to effectively, like you say, just to rest, relax, and then just come back up.
Okay, cool.
The way I think in my head, it probably scientifically doesn't work like this, is that you've got hey, back in focus. The way I think of it in my head,
back.
Yeah, cheers. And the way I think of it in my head is that you've got almost like a sandwich that's under pressure this way, but the pads almost have a suction out as well. So you almost got like a mini vacuum in my head.
Yeah,
so you're like pressing it down, but also sucking up at the same time, which helps ease those dents back out, which is where you want it to.
Yeah. It's a bit of give kind of thing that allows it to leave and level out. It's not being restrained. That's the thing. It's like it has that ability, and that realistically, on a dent like that, where it is just a simple smooth, would it come out the first time, or again, rule of 3 style of thing? Yeah,
I'd do rule of 3. Just look for little improvements. You might find it in like the texture. It might be one side that's improved over the other.
Yeah.
You've always got escalation you can put with it. So, you could do like the snail trail and do the same again. Which is a bit more localized moisture to that area.
So the localized moisture method is something that with most dents I've done has proven to be the best way forward. But I have always just started with this method first, just to give it a back, because it's the quickest. It takes a day, 2 days kind of thing, just to see what can be achieved. And then normally from that, if it has come out quite a lot, I can be like, sweet, I'll just do another one of these. If it's still there quite a bit, then I will go into the localized moisture method. Worst case scenario now. So that's the best case scenario. You've got a shallow dent. It's nice and wide, easy to solve. Will probably take 1-2 cycles to bring up. Now, worst case scenario, we've got a really rigid, to be fair, like a Japanese modern or English modern textured card that's got a big old dent in it, either from the front or from the back. Your first initial thoughts, put it through this process, it's done nothing, absolutely nothing to it. What are we doing?
Okay, so say for example,
and it's a pin. It's like a little pen dent
pin dot
kind of thing,
right.
like
so
a tiny little.
Let's simulate a little pin dent. So you do that, right? So that's a pin dent. So again, if we use that analogy before, that's really exaggerated, but you can see that there.
Yeah.
So that's the damage that's gone through all 3 layers. So you need to then do exactly what we said before: hydrate the card. Plates, pads, 2 sprays. Fine. If you're really fancy, you'll have a humidor. Cool. It's the same way. Just get the card moist, use the card mist, and you get it to a point where it's workable. And again, all you're going to be doing for a pin dent is where the pin dent's protruding from. So typically, the pin dent would be front, back.
Yeah.
But so it's protruding at the back. We want to massage it from the back to the front. And again, obviously this is a crisp, dry card, but you'd use I'll probably use my clay tools here, but you'd massage that point down to try and get the point as flat as possible. But again, you're not going mental. It's just gently massaging the card, working it from different areas. You can see just from me doing that, how that massive pin has gone on the back.
Yeah, flattened down. Yeah. But obviously, like we say, because the paper backing of a card is so much easier to work on than the plastic. Because at the end of the day, we're all familiar with how flexible and like how like easy paper is. Yet plastic, if I have this top loader, is rigid and stuff and stern. So it's just that, but on a card.
Exactly. And what you'll find is when you're working it, you'll need to go back the other way. So if you think back to that 3-card layer thing, if you've got a dent that is coming through like all of this bit that protrudes through, you're going to have to go, you can't just sort this pin out here. You have to go through it, all the 3 layers, to start massaging this
to get that.
top layer, right? So what you'll find is when you're massaging pin dents, a lot of people go, well, I flatten one side, I go, sweet, but you haven't actually gone through and massaging the top layer. You probably need to censor that. Action, perhaps, but,
well, no, that's literally what I did earlier. Like, I was there, like, so you got to like push it through, like that.
So you do have to, when the card's really sort of pliable, and this is working into a pad as well, right? So same as before.
Of course,
You do have to go like almost all the way through it to start working that top pin dent.
So at this point, obviously, we say how crucial it is to not apply pressure, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
For you to be able to reach that other side of the card, to be able to go through the back of it, what sort of pressure are you applying, kind of thing? Or still just not much, just enough to...
Depends what tool. So if you're using, it's like if you stand on a pin, that's a lot of pressure. Sorry, not a lot of pressure through a small area, so you're going to get a lot of impact. If you've got wider, bigger tools, it's a little bit easier. But again, all I'm doing really is massaging. A lot of the tools I use are like massaging type. I'm not pushing down, I'm almost going across and then working down. Because that's where you're going to leave scarring, is if you start scraping. You don't want to be scraping, you are literally massaging. You'll know the pressure. Like you wouldn't, if you're giving someone a back rub or something, you wouldn't just go like that. You'd sort of go like that, wouldn't you? Yeah. You
feel the fibres do their thing. And I mean, I keep stressing it, but it really, really is. It's such a, just take your time. Like, do not rush it, because this is where, in these moments are the ones where you can make a card or break a card. Because 100%. Like, it's so easy to just do one wrong move and you've put too much pressure and now you've permanently dented that card. It's better to just go low, slow, and then actually get decent results, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%.
But with pin dents though, once you are pushing it out the other side, what is the likelihood of it coming actually back out, kind of thing, and like fluffing up? Because that's something I've struggled with pin dents, and seen other people struggle with, is getting it out 100%, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think it's expectations from the start. So if you've got a card that's properly prepped, you've massaged the back, I'd always expect the back to near enough always pop back out. The key thing is trying to work the front so that it looks the best it can look. So if you've got an EX card like this, you're probably going to get some form of scarring. On any modern card that's like a plasticky finish, I always say to people, you're probably going to get some form of scarring. Sometimes there isn't, which is great, because that's when the impact's actually happened. It's not sort of damaged it too badly. It's just pushed it in a bit. So you can get that. But it is just a case of reworking that cycle over and over again. The rule of 3, though, till you've got a place where you've worked the card from the back and it's treated that area. Something that might help people as well, a lot of follow-up questions I get to pin dents is, how do I know where I'm aiming? And something that I've been doing for a while is I lob the card in a penny sleeve. I'm hoping I have one to hand. Yes, I do. So you put the card in a penny sleeve, okay? And say, for example, your pin dent is there.
Right.
That's the area you want to work, okay? You then take the card out of the penny sleeve. You've got that there. Flip it over. Mark that area. And then I did this once before. Don't forget to flip the penny sleeve back over again.
I was going to say, yeah.
Otherwise, you end up working the wrong area of the card.
Right, yeah, literally.
And there, you have a penny sleeve, front and back. That's where the pin dent is.
Perfect. Genius.
So you then just work that area of the card as you need to. So
easy peasy.
I know now, and to be fair, I have done this before. I've left it in the card like this. So put the pad underneath there, and then you can massage that area. And I know that area is exactly where the pin dent is.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. So when you're working, like, because that's the extreme, and I guess everywhere in between that is just stylized versions of that. So obviously, in our last episode, we talked about escalating the what you do kind of thing. Start with the easiest, work your way up. Have you ever used any form of heat or the heat press or anything like that when it's come to dents to try and sort of, because if it is protruding out the front, to be able to sort of flatten it back down once you have worked the back?
So the only time I'd use it on a dent would be like to help the drying time at the end. Something that I found works quite well to help the texture of a card is like a silicone tool like this.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it's like a version of a clay tool. But what I'll do towards the back end, if the texture's looking a little bit off, or I need to sort of work it a bit, is if it's appropriately wet or not damaged, you can literally go straight onto the card rather than
Cool.
like a penny sleeve.
Yeah, yeah.
And that you can see the fibres sort of working as you're sort of going across, and it is like slow brush strokes, but
Yeah, yeah.
and that'll help sort the texture out. What a heat press does is it locks everything in.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course.
you wouldn't do that from the outset because
It almost sets the card kind of thing, doesn't it? Well, I guess, yeah, because it causes everything to shrink. It loses that moisture as everything just shrinks back into it. It's what heat does to plastic and card. It just makes it shrink up really loads. So you wouldn't advise using heat on dents kind of thing?
No. I mean, if you've got a pin dent, and like you say, if you're talking about like plastic shrinking, if you've got a pin dent that goes through to the front of this card,
Yeah.
and you heat it, it's gonna shrink up, but it's not gonna shrink up from a flat
It
position.
doesn't shrink down. Yeah.
It'll probably like crinkle or do something
It'll
like
go
that.
in.
And
Yeah. And come in, and then you'll be left with more of a scar.
there's no shortcuts with stuff like this. So it's just trying to take your time, be patient.
No, I think that's probably the best advice that we've given out for this entire thing. And again, dents are one of the things that, on the severity, like the first one we talked about, the easy, like best case scenario one, you will probably get it out 100% of the time. But worst case scenario dents, like those vicious pin ones, you can't, like the one I spoke about with the gentleman who had it on the edge of the cards, where like, it was a very sharp ridge kind of thing, right at the top, really, really sharp little indent kind of thing. I think best case scenario is you could make it look better, but I think that will be there forever because it wasn't like delamination, it wasn't like anything, but it was literally front layer has been really pinched. And something before we finish this episode is, everyone has probably seen your incredible results with the Mewtwo and the roller lines. So, yeah. So, did you use these techniques in getting rid of those roller lines? Because they're sort of like just big, wide dents, effectively.
Yeah, so yes is the answer. So what you'll probably find with roller damage cards is you'll end up with some form of scarring. A lot of the time when they've smashed together, it's always like you've got the roller on the card and it's done like that. In this groove along here, you'll probably end up with some form of crease. Luckily on the Mewtwo there wasn't any, which is perfect.
Yeah.
The Magnemite, which was a PC card to work on, is now sitting in my son's collection. He's had off for that.
Of course.
You know, there's a tiny little crease down one of the edges. You know, from where we were, from like this massive sort of treatment that it's had, like it looks amazing. But the same steps that I talked you through. It's literally soak the card, do the couple of sprays, get the card out, work it along all those ridges, all those high bits, low bits from both sides into a pad, left it clamped up in fresh pads or flip the pads over, and then just repeat it. I probably did it about 10 times, I think, on the Mewtwo.
Yeah.
And then I finished it in the heat press as well, which made it sort of like all lock in, which was great. So, but yeah, it took a bit of time.
So this is
good.
I'm so glad, like, being honest, and because a lot of the time you see on Instagram or YouTube, like, everyone makes it look really easy. Like, it is like you get these fantastic results, but they come from hard work, dedication, patience, time, all of the things that there is a lot that goes into this side of the hobby. And you have moments where it's really easy, takes 2 minutes to fix, but you'll also have really difficult times, more often than not, where it will take weeks to get to it.
Yeah.
The key thing is just don't give up unless you have to. Stop when you need to stop, but do persevere, be brave, have confidence in yourself, and learn the abilities. Like, I've had so many people message me being like, it really is trial and error, and it really is, but you can accomplish some truly amazing things. So on that bombshell, is there anything else you'd like to add at all, information wise?
Always here to help. So if anyone has any questions, drop us a message. You know, pride ourselves on responding to people and helping each other out. So yeah, any questions, continue to ask and reach out and send us some before and afters. Love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, everyone, knowledge is power. Subscribe, comment any feedback, anything you'd like to see us do next. We're probably going to be covering creases in the next episode, so dedicate an episode to creases, how to tackle them, and that's when we probably will go more into the heat press side of things and how to dabble on that one. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us,
Cheers, guys. Take care.
and we shall see you soon. Love you to all, everyone.
Peace.
Love you, bye.